Newcastle United's worries continue. At once, Eddie Howe could do no wrong at Newcastle United, taking them from the relegation places all the way to the Champions League. He's a man that's brought the vibrancy back at Newcastle United, uniting the Newcastle fans with the club once again, averaging last season 2.2 goals per 90 and sitting third for the most goal-creating actions across the whole season, only behind Manchester City and Arsenal. But this season has taken its turn for the worst. After the opening 13 games of the season, they've only scored 14 goals. And the metrics speak for themselves. They're conceding more goals, conceding more shots per 90, they're having less shots, they're having less possession, they're averaging less successful passes. All the metrics are quite concerning. Now, they've just went to Crystal Palace and drew 1-1. Doesn't sound like a bad result away from home. However, the result is not the worrying thing. It's the performances and the manner of the way we portray ourselves. Crystal Palace was sitting 19th in the Premier League table and couldn't buy a win. The statistics speak for themselves. One shot, no shots on goal for Newcastle United against Crystal Palace's 16 attempts. I'm sorry, that raises questions. And questions were put earlier how. Why aren't we getting more attacking output like we're seeing last season? And what's worrying is Eddie Howe's response. He went on to say it's a difficult one to answer because we haven't changed anything. That's alarm bell number one. You're always trying to evolve and improve, but we certainly haven't changed our attacking philosophy in any way. Right, look, let's get this straight. Eddie Howe has done a wonderful job with Newcastle United, and unfortunately there has been circumstances in the transfer market in regards to PSR where they can't be ambitious like they want to be. But that should not detect from the manner of the performances on the football pitch. Now, just because Eddie Howe has done a wonderful job over the past couple of seasons doesn't mean he can't be given constructive criticism. Now, there are many factors why Newcastle United might not be at their ultimate fluid best as usual. Injuries one, Eddie Howe reluctant to evolve and adapt is another. The PSR rules in the transfer window, the lack of planning and preparation in the transfer window, and the belief in the squad. I don't know about you guys, but in my opinion, it's a complexion of all those. Now, I feel like Eddie Howe is coming away from everything that was unbelievable about Newcastle United last season. Last season, only Liverpool and Arsenal had more direct attacks than Newcastle United. There was one word that was synonymous with Newcastle United last season, and that was intensity. You could probably throw in aggression with that as well. Now, what I've seen from Newcastle from the past two games against Palace and West Ham, and you could argue probably the whole season, is they've been so lethargic, passive, in and out of possession. It just doesn't look like the Newcastle United of last season. Let's start with the average positioning. Look at how high and aggressive and compact we were against Man United last season. Newcastle was so good at suffocating opponents, winning the ball back high and early. Therefore, they were in better positions, had more people in the final third to create more chances. And just look at the average positioning of this season. We've almost went from a high block to a mid block and now down to a low block. One thing that tells me we're inviting pressure onto us, but also allowing and giving the space for the opponents to dictate play. And speaking of dictating play, that's also managed in our possession. Look at our possession from last season to this season. Our touches in every single third is decreased. Apart from one area, we're having more touches in our own penalty area this season than we were last season. So we're not having enough of the ball to create opportunities. We're not being direct enough when we do get the ball, but we're also being passive and allowing the opposition onto us when they're attacking. Now, I feel like Eddie Howe is bringing in the wrong profiles to fit his style, because I often say football is built on profiles and partnerships. Now, what was so good about Newcastle offensively last season was Kieran Trippier. He was so underrated in everything good about Newcastle United going forward. He finished the campaign with his joint most assists, with the most passes leading to shots for Newcastle United. Now, what they were very, very good at is playing Dan Burn at left back, having him tucking around as a third centre back, and that allowed to have some security at the back, but also allowed Kieran Trippier to push high and wide, get in those dangerous areas where he can use his ball magic distribution to create bundles of chances for Newcastle. Now, what they were also good at is playing Bruno in that number 6 position. Although at times he lacked that discipline, it allowed the two number 8s, whether that be Joe Linton, Longstaff, to get inside the box, therefore having more bodies in the box, so you've got a higher chance of getting a shot off and scoring a goal. And last season, this also allowed Amaron and Anthony Gordon to have diagonal runs attacking the inside channels, being narrow with their runs. Now, this done three things. It gave the man in possession more options to be progressive. It also off-balanced the opposition structure, and it supported Isak in attack. Now, these third-man runs have stopped happening, so we're not getting as many bodies in the box, so therefore we'll have less chance of getting a shot on target or scoring. Now, the difference this season is we're getting more width from the wingers, and that leaves us less compact and narrow in the central areas, and it doesn't allow the fullback to tuck in as a third centre-back. So the system is changed from last season, and it's not for the better. And the fact that Newcastle are playing 5 yards deeper than they were last season means that they're not being as courageous, being as brave or aggressive in possession. And remember, the ball travels quicker than the man. So the fact that we're receiving possession, we've only got one option up front because we're sitting so deep. Now, another aspect that Newcastle United were absolutely brilliant with is being direct in possession. They actually finished third for the most successful take-ons leading to shots in the Premier League last season. And when you compare that to this season, they're actually sitting bottom. They've actually went from 48.6 successful take-ons to 39.5 this season. Now, partially that can be down to confidence, but it's up to Eddie Howe to provide that confidence in the players, provide that belief that these methods will work. It just feels like the sting has been removed from Newcastle United. Now, from an external factor, a lot more teams are pressing in a 4-4-2 structure. This completely offsets exactly what Newcastle United were good at last season. Last season, we've seen more teams pressing a 4-3-3. This left more room for Newcastle United to exploit. And the fact that we're having less possession means those two banks of four are so difficult to break down. Now, Bruno has usually been Newcastle's dictator, his operator, dictating from deep, sending balls into space for Gordon or Amaron to move on to last season. And that was working brilliantly. So in possession, Newcastle were pretty much inviting pressure to open up space, and they're failing to do that because they haven't got the ball enough to invite pressure on. And I feel like Eddie Howe was struggling to find the formula between Tonali, Bruno and Joe Linton. One thing I will say about Joe Linton, he's not a winger. Please stop playing him out on the wing. And I understand why we're doing it, but please stop. So when teams pressing a 4-4-2, what they're looking to do is force you out wide and then trusting their fullbacks in one-on-one situations. So how can you overcome this? Create overloads out wide. Newcastle should be able to do this with ease with their two number 8s and their overlapping fullbacks. Newcastle last season were very good at attacking narrowly, but things evolve, things change, and Eddie Howe's got to change with the times and maybe look to exploit teams around the outside. If the ball's on the right-hand side, have your right number 8 teaming up with the right winger. If the ball's on the left-hand side, have your left number 8 teaming up with the left-hand winger. Because it was so courageous with their movement last season, they almost attacked teams in a 4-2-4 formation. And that was extremely brave, but it worked. Now, this might be down to a couple of things. Obviously, Eddie Howe changing and implementing his tactic to be more defensive, but it also could be down to the confidence of the players. Now, I'm a firm believer of confidence comes from one thing, the manager. It's up to the manager to get the best out of the players. Now, I know the form can drop. That's not what I'm saying. They look like they lack belief. You can try things and it might not come off, but it looks like Newcastle United just aren't even trying them things. I'll give you a player, an example, Noni Maniweki. He is somebody that doesn't have the best output for Chelsea, but he never gives up. He's trying it constantly. He might try and take on a man, be unsuccessful, but he'll go and go again. It looks like that confidence in the Newcastle United players have just gone. So in my opinion, I think he needs to bring Bruno back as a number 6, bring Joe Linton back inside alongside Tonali as a number 8. And one of the best things about Alexander Isak is his movement. And even he's starting to look more static. And again, I think it comes down to belief. He believes that even if he makes the run, he's not going to get the ball because we look so passive and lethargic in possession. Now, I just want to quickly bring up the transfer window because the hot pursuit of Mark Ahey was embarrassing. Embarrassing. The lack of preparation, the lack of second planning was embarrassing. The team is crying out for a right winger. We had 70 million to spend on Mark Ahey. We could have bought a winger for roughly 20, 30 million and then bought an alternative centre-back for another 30 million. Sometimes you've just got to learn to walk away. Now, this isn't me saying Eddie Howe should be sacked, because I think it's too early for that. Give him a chance to turn things around. I don't think Newcastle can really change formation if they went to a 4-2-3-1, because they haven't got that natural creator, that natural number 10, like a Martin Odegaard, like a João Felix, like a Cole Palmer. They don't have that sort of profile in their squad. So naturally, a 4-3-3 is best for them. But it's just about adapting to different games. Different principles in your philosophy must be adapted to, because if you look at Enzo Maresca, the way he adapts, tweaks little things to win games of football is very impressive. Arne Slot does it with Liverpool as well. They adapt depending on who they're playing against. And it looks like Eddie Howe is just failing to identify that. Now, do I think he can turn it around? I do, but I do also think expectations need to be met, because Newcastle aren't going to qualify for Champions League every year, and I don't think the fans expect that, but they just want to see a team ambitious, with fight, hunger, looking to at least compete for European places. So you guys can tell us if I'm right or wrong in the comments below. Probably wrong, but that's just my aspect on things, and I would love to hear yours. So drop us a comment in the below. What do you think is going on at Newcastle United at the minute? Let us know in the comments below. And before you go, don't be shy. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button for more. And once again, I just want to say I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.